She said, before I came here today, she said, I was praying, I was asking God to give me a sign that He is real. She said, I wanted to know from God, are you real and are you hearing me? Am I getting through to anybody that's really listening, that's real? God, I need a sign. In response to a young man who was on, he was saying that tongues and speaking in tongues and all of this is just fake. I am a born again, spirit filled Christian person. I do pray in tongues, I do speak in tongues. The story that I'm going to tell you is of a time where I was volunteering. I was a volunteer minister in the parish prison. And we would go every other Sunday to minister to the inmates who were there. They only give you a certain amount of time with which to do whatever you're going to do. And so we went in with a semi-structure, but we would try to be led by the Holy Spirit. So this one particular morning when we were there, we were finished pretty much the service, and we were coming to the end, and usually, toward the end of our time, we would all gather together and hold hands and pray. Well, as we were coming to the end of this particular service, and it was time for us to gather to hold hands and pray, I had this very strong desire to speak in tongues or to pray in tongues. Now, it's not something that I did usually, because we have people, there's all kinds of people in the parish prison. There's people that have never really even heard of tongues. There's folk that may have had bad experience with it and kind of put off by it. Then there's people that they don't care, or there's some people who are curious about it, There are people who are familiar with it, grew up in churches where that was the case, or families, where speaking in tongues was something that was just every day. So this particular time, I had a very strong sense, like I said, to pray in tongues. And I just felt that something more was needed, and the tongues was going to bring that. I didn't know how. I didn't know the interpretation was going to bring. I didn't know. But I let the ladies know. I said, we're going to pray like we usually do, but I'm also going to pray in tongues, because I just feel a very strong desire to do that, or a sense of very strong leading to do it. And so everybody was okay with it. So we prayed, and then I prayed in tongues. And no sooner had I finished than one of the inmates, she said, do you know what you just said? And I had to be honest. I was like, no, ma'am. I was like, it was female inmates, all of us in there. We were ministering to the female inmates that morning. And I said, no, I don't know what I said. The only inkling I had that that was something I needed to do, but I didn't know why. And I didn't know what I said when I finished. And then another inmate, not the one who just asked me if I knew what I said, but then another inmate said, she says, I know one thing that you said. She said, you called out my entire name. And she said, and then she called out for us the name. It was a long African name. She said, that's my first name, my middle name, and my last name. And then she told us what it meant. I don't remember what it meant, but she said to us, she said, this is my name, this is what it means, and this is what you said. And we all recognized it as those tongues that I had spoken. We recognized what I said. I just thought it was tongues words. I didn't know it, but she knew that was her name. And she said, before I came here today, she said, I was praying, I was asking God to give me a sign that He is real. She said, I wanted to know from God, are you real and are you hearing me? Am I getting through to anybody that's really listening, that's real? God, I need a sign. And she said, that was my sign. And she said, thank you, because that was my sign. You called my entire name from beginning to end, first, middle, and last name. And, my mouth I know my mouth was open, just dropped open, because it was like, and nobody else said anything. It just stunned us all. It was kind of like that feeling you get like when the hair stand up on the back of your neck. It was kind of like that feeling. And and that was that was one of the things to me that just was like, whew, that was phenomenal, because God met that lady where she was. And think about if I had just not even spoken, or went ahead and did what I did in the tongues, because somebody might feel some kind of way about it, or because somebody didn't believe in it or whatever, because there've been fake and phonies here and there, and just because you've seen a fake doesn't mean that there isn't the real and the authentic somewhere. Likewise, just because your experience may be with the genuineness of it doesn't mean that there are not people out there who are faking. The presence of one does not necessarily negate the other. There could be fakes, but then there is the genuine. There is the genuine, but yet there could be fakes. You understand what I'm saying? So that's my experience. That's what I want to share. One thing that tongues are for is for a sign, to help people to believe, and to help confirm the reality of God and his truth. And because people don't believe that Jesus is real, that he is alive and well and present and able to communicate with them as God, but it's true. It's real. And so yeah, and I'd love to hear other examples of how God has shown up, or how tongues or some of the other gifts of the Spirit have been used in your life as perhaps a sign, or in some other way for some other purpose. Yeah, I would really love to hear that.